Hey guys, welcome to the PLOspectives episode 4, a show where we explore unbeatable strategies within the great game of Pot Limit Omaha. We take one hand, go through the action, and see how each party should have played their hand and how they should construct their ranges. And here is a disclaimer, don't take my words for granted. Every situation in PLO is different, so do your own research. Results and conclusions shown and made in this video are only true under these specific assumptions, stack sizes, reads and opponents, and rake structure. In today's episode, we're going to be looking at a hand that I played recently at PLO 400 tables. So let's jump right into the action. It gets folded around to the button, who decides to open raise. Small blind folds, and we are sitting in the big blind holding double suited 10-8-7-3 and decided to call. Let's take a look at the pre-flop sim. In this case, it's 200 zoom rake structure, and solver says that double suited or any version of 10-8-7-3 should be a fold. The closest defend would be 10-8-7-4. But in any case, you should remember that that is a very marginal defend. So if folding gives us -2 middle chip, or which equals to -1 big blind, then calling gives us expected value of -1900, which is pretty much 1/20th of a big blind. So it's really marginal defend, and if you're facing a tough opponent, then it might even make sense to just skip it and fold pre-flop. Anyways, I decided to call, and we see a flop of Jack 10-4. On the flop, I decide to check, button checks back, and we head into the turn of 9 of clubs. This is the street why I decided to take this hand into the PLOspectives and explore a little bit further, because I wanted to explore big blind's leading ranges after flop goes check on this runout. Because in game I was thinking whether my hand is good enough or not to be leading here. So let's take a look at the turn simulation, what solver thinks about it. So on the turn, once button has checked back flop, we suddenly have polarity advantage here, like pretty massive. You can see the blue line represents big blind's range and the red line is button's range. And actually that makes a lot of sense, because if you take a look at the flop simulation for in position, then we're gonna filter out to king queen. Then king queen should be a c-bet almost 100% of the times, like 90 plus percent. Once in position checks back flop and the turn is 9, then we know he's not gonna have the nuts here almost ever. Only, what is it? I filter out which part of the range, 2% of the time. So 1 out of 50 hands is gonna have the nuts, and that's it. Imagine how wide we should be stabbing here. And that's what solver suggests here. We should be potting we should be leading for pot 55% of the times. This is massive. Like I don't see people do this enough, and I definitely don't do that myself enough, but that's why we are here for, to learn and to then try to implement some exploits. Obviously we shouldn't be following blindly the solver solutions, right? Because we need to adjust to our players. There are players who are going to be checking a lot of king queens here, and there are players who are going to be c-betting a lot of their or all of their king queens here. So always take into consideration who you are up against. And so Let's see. First of all, let's see if my specific hand would be a lead. So I had 10-8-7 without clubs. I don't even have to filter. 10-8-7 would always be a lead here. All right, that makes sense. Now, as we know that in position doesn't have nuts here almost ever, 7-8 becomes a very easy value lead. What else are we leading here? And to understand that, I'm gonna start excluding some hands that I think are relevant on this board, like for example Queen, I believe, is very relevant here. So you can see our leading percentage drops by like 13%. No, that's a club. With the Queen it drops slightly smaller. So anyways, Queen and clubs are very relevant, as well as maybe an 8. Yeah, and probably a king. Oops, king. That relevant, but still. So you can see, excluding king, queen, club, and an 8, our leading frequency drops by 40%, which is actually like 40 out of 54. It's like 80% or something. And what we're left here with are pretty much sets. A lot of jacks, a lot of 9s, 10s. Yeah, any sets that unblock flush draws specifically. And at this point, we're not afraid of king queens anymore, because we know in position doesn't really have them. So we just bet for value. We want to get called by flush draws, maybe some 2-pair plus gutter, 2-pair plus open-ender type of hands, something like that. And we still pot in all of them. All right. I did lead, but I chose like 2/3 sizing for some reason. And I did get called. The river is 7 of spades. And my question here in game, I was thinking that if I bet, I might get raised sometimes, which I'm not gonna be comfortable calling. So I decided to pot control and check this one. And in position decided to bet quite large. What's it, like 2/3? Something like that. At this point, his play didn't make sense to me. Like, obviously I'm not gonna fold my straight here given the action, but it just, his line doesn't really make much sense here, because I can be slow playing like queen 8 here, might be even slow playing king queen here sometimes. I'm not sure about that. I haven't checked solver for that. And I might still go for the check raise and him checking back flop and then cold call in turn. Just, it's a very weak line to be betting river here for that sizing. So obviously I called, and my opponent showed a hand like ace queen queen jack. And that's interesting, because I would assume that this hand is a clear c-bet on the flop. Now let's explore the strategy for my opponent and see what solver thinks about it. So let's look at the flop sim. Flop sim, out of position checks, and in position holds ace queen queen jack. Solver thinks it's 100% c-bet, and I would agree with solver here in this spot, because although we do have queens as a showdown value, and we have like backdoor flush draw and the nut gutter, as well as jack blocker. I think our blockers are more valuable than the showdown of queens, because we can be like, this is a prime candidate that can go for multiple streets barrel in here and put in a ton of pressure on out of position. Yeah, so I would really like to see but I see players do the same mistake on over and over again on all type of stakes that I've played so far up to below 600, that they kind of think that this is a good bluff catcher here, but it's actually not. Blockers are more valuable. So on the flop should be a c-bet 100%, and overall in position should be c-betting a ton here 60%. Also don't see players c-betting that often on that type of board. Anyways, let's take a look at the turn. On the turn, I didn't know which sizing to choose, so I ran two sims, and I gave, in one sim I gave the option to bet either half pot or full pot. In the other one I gave the option to only use one sizing, which is 75 or 3/4 of the pot. And I found the interesting result here that when given two options, bet 50% and full pot, our c-bet or double barrel frequency in position is 16 plus 38, 54%. But when given only one sizing, 3/4, we still maintain the same frequency. So we like, this is much more implementable at the tables, that we don't sacrifice in betting frequencies. And actually, if I show you the EV, button EV 24,000, and I think it has to be the same 24,000. These are pretty much identical. So the beauty of this is that we don't have to sacrifice in betting frequencies, neither we have to sacrifice in our EV. And of course it's going to be hard to balance properly our half pot size betting range and full pot betting range. For that reason I suggest to be using only one sizing in this spot, given the fact that we don't lose EV in this spot, and much more implementable and easier to remember. So we're off on the turn after c-bet in the flop. Out of position checks, which on this board makes sense. Like, we pretty much never lead here. Check full range as out of position. In position, holding ace queen queen jack. Was it ace queen queen jack? Ace queen queen jack. He's going to c-bet 3/4 of times. So with the queen of clubs, maybe that has the club but don't have clubs. Now it's still the same, doesn't really change the fact. So with the ace, no, actually a lot of hands with queen of clubs also c-bet here. So yeah, I think makes sense. Like, we also block some of the flush draws holding Broadway club, as well as queens block the current nuts, and jack also blocks some two pair combos and sets. What else do we double barrel here? For that, I'm gonna start excluding some hands once again, some cards more so, which I believe are here on this board. So excluding a queen, our drops our frequency by almost 50%, from 54 to 27. Yeah, So queen is essential to be double barreling here for in position. What else? I'd say club makes sense. Another 50% drop. What else? Maybe an 8. Another 50% drop with an 8. And probably queen, but maybe it's not. No, actually, yeah, we're pretty much down to 0 blocking or removing cards like king, queen, 8, and a club. So this is our entire double barrel range. Makes sense a lot. We want to be blocking out of position calling range or raising range. I mean both. As well as maybe have some additional equity in form of clubs or something like that. Or blocking turn nuts and being able to triple barrel with a hand like this one. Anyways, so that's the wrong sim. Turn should also be turn double barrel would be preferable option from in position given the run out. And we head into the river. On the river, again, I didn't know about the sizings here. I gave both parties 2 options to bet either half pot or pot. And as we can see, out of position never leads here once again, which again makes sense after check calling twice. And once checked, in position never uses a half pot size bet here. So we only bet, like if in position bets, then it only bets for full pot. And the frequency is super high, like 60, 68%. Let's see what we are triple barreling here, apart from the obvious nuts. So I'm gonna start excluding once again. So I'm gonna say we don't have king queen here. That is roughly 20% of our range. We don't have queen 8 because we know we're gonna be valuable in those, right? Queen 8, we probably don't have a hand like Jack 10. Well, actually, just gonna exclude an 8. And these, I assume, are gonna be all the bluffs, right? Am I right? Has to be. No king queen, no queen 8, no 8. Yeah, actually, if I... Yeah. So let's see what we are left here with. Oh no, wait, sorry. Let's see first of all about... let's check the villain's hand. Ace, queen, queen, jack. I mean, clear triple barrel, making a lot of sense. And actually, comparing some of the other bluffs, it makes quite a bit of big blinds. So the EV of this bluff is 7 point something, 7 big blinds, which comparing to some of the bluffs is pretty high EV. Now let's see what else do with triple barrel here. Obviously queens, quite a bit of queens here. I remove those. Yeah, that's quite a big part of our betting range. So dropping from 50 to 30, so it's 2/3 of the remaining range. Queens are prime candidate, of course. What else? Solar is really an optimist. Triple barrel in this 3-4, this 3 king, this 3-3-4, this 3 jack king. Like, that's sick. Has to be an optimist. I get the point. Like, the point is we are unblocking, like, out of position folding range, but still just too optimistic in my mind. Some kings. King. Don't see any clear patterns anymore. I mean, queens are the best candidates. Just remove king queen and see the rest. Once again. Wait a moment. If I say, that's interesting. Look at this. Our c-bet or triple barrel frequency is on the river in the spot is 68%. If I'm gonna remove a queen from our holdings, our frequency drops by almost 80%, dropping to like 14%. I think the second most relevant card would be a king. So if I remove king and queen, then we don't even consider triple bluffing anymore. So those are two, like, the most relevant essential cards to be holding in your hand when considering triple barreling. Yeah, I think that's a good takeaway here, to remember that it's quite easy to remember, like blocking the nuts. So holding king or a queen is essential, and we always want to pot here in this spot, something like that. Yeah, that was interesting. Thank you guys for watching. Take care. See you at the tables. I'm your PLO Bull Flare Race. Bye bye.